Chris, so let's do this. I told you this was going to be a big week. I told you it was going to blow some doors off some funding limits, and if you're over on GameFound, that's exactly what it's doing. Kickstarter's not doing too bad this week, but this is a GameFound heavy week, and you obviously know why if you're tuning in, because we're covering it. We're covering it. We're doing it. I'll probably have a separate video as well. Elder Scrolls, Betrayal of the Second Era, Chip Theory Games, plus a few other things. As always, covering it all, baby. But what do you need to know? Subscribe if you want. Slowing down right now. Let's get to 10K. Let's get to 10K. Also, if you're one of those two people, I have not heard back from either of my winners for the 7K giveaway. Maybe I didn't announce it loud enough on last week's roundup, but maybe I'm gonna have to do a separate video. But neither of them has emailed me back at this point, so don't consider yourselves out of the running yet at this time, because maybe they don't want it either. And if that's the case, I'll redraw again soon. There you go. That's all I got. Stay classy. Let's do this. So we're going straight into it. We're starting with Elder Scrolls, the most popular, most interesting, and the most divisive at the same time. So almost 7,000 people at the time of me filming this, $2 million. Price point is the biggest discussion point with all of these games, right? And if you thought that Chip Theory Games wasn't going to have a higher price point on this one, well, you kind of went in there not really thinking about it, right? This is an IP-based game. There's going to be some of that. And then there's also the little shipping thing that they declared about, and we'll talk about that in a second. Again, this lends itself to a very dichotomous discussion, because if you want Elder Scrolls, this is going to be the definitive game. I have not heard the best things of Modiphices over on GameFound from last year. People have not been terribly pleased with that, it sounds like. I don't really know. I don't pay attention to that one. It was sort of an open world adventure quest style game, and now this has the similar ring to it, but it's not Skyrim. This is essentially completely different in that sense. And what you've got going on here is you've got three different areas that you're going to be delving in terms of the macro to the micro, right? In terms of areas that you're going to be battling against in terms of dungeons, mini skirmishes, and sort of an in-between. And you're going to be leveling up your character and battling using dice. Dice, again. So you need to be aware of that, as well as, do you like the deluxifications? I've always said it. Nothing against it. This is going to be a premium product. Now with the IP on top of that, now with the shipping, depending on how you feel about that, it's going to cost you $195 just for the base pledge. And so all the people that are like, I'm strategist, so I'm super pleased. Well, that's great. And that makes you one of about 50 people in the world. But the rest of us are going, okay, what do I need to know about this game? Is it going to be worth it? What do I need to actually know to determine? It's too many bones in a completely different way. It is. It is. Because look at this map. This map looks very similar in the sense of you're going to be progressing through. But the tricky part is you're going to have two skills that you're going to be progressing from one side to the other that you're going to be slowly trying to build up. But if you build one up, then it's going to knock the other one down in terms of you only have so much skill to basically balance out totally. And that's what you're also going to be having to deal with. How well do you want to customize it? I think something like 20 different skills or ability classes that you're going to be having the option of going through, or as well as the different race that you're going to be dealing with, as well as your starter. So affiliations, dungeon crawls, scenario-based quests, a little bit of everything to go along with this. They run you through a little bit of why backing now. Yeah, obviously, bundled prices. Make sure you get your copy. Get your copy now, guarantee it, essentially. And, the other thing with Chip Theory Games is you're going to be getting a better price. You know that it's going to be cheaper now than getting it at retail. It just is. And there's nothing wrong with that. And they run you through a little bit of what you're going to be getting here. The different classes that I mentioned, the different races, then as well as the different regions. And I mentioned here the other different mats, because those are the three levels that I mentioned, right? The delve, which is sort of your medium, the entrance is sort of your exploratory one, and the clash is your big dungeon, essentially, I think, if I'm getting those right. You got your quests, they're giving you a D6 there. Nice pretty white D6, sorry. Chips and everything else you'd expect. They're giving premium health chips if you want to buy that as an add-on. The add-on, though, if you're gonna get them all, the bundled all in is like $400 right now, which will save you like 20 or 30 bucks. Take that for what you will. The gameplay all in is only $230. So, that's a big difference. That's about 100% difference between the gameplay all in and the deluxified all in, which is insane. Like, I have no problem about a premium product, but can you imagine if, and I guess this is probably not too far off, actually, if I just sit down and did the math, like, a Carnegie or a Darwin's Journey retail version versus deluxified version. I mean, it's probably close to about 100% as well. So the one thing I'll say is that they've got a couple videos out now at the time of me filming this, so you can see how it actually plays. But this main portion right here of why I'm sitting here on this image for a second is there ain't one of these. There ain't one of these out. And that's really the make it or break it. I like seeing how the game flows, but if I'm going to invest this much money, I also want to have a rule book. I also want to know, again, like if you're playing this game, a lot of your rules are internalized. Now, if you're playing this game and you're one of the Chip Theory members, right, you're going to play this multiple times. You're going to have a lot of that knowledge, a lot of that overhead already. And so if I'm not someone that's doing that, how much is this going to compare to Too Many Bones, right? Not because it's the same gameplay as Too Many Bones, but because I'm worried about that level of complexity, that level of overhead, and that level of engagement, because Too Many Bones, frankly speaking, is hard to get played. It's hard to get played unless you're like a solo player. It's hard to teach other people. It's hard to learn all the stuff that you need to know. It's a lot of stuff. And that's the biggest concern I have with this one. They run you through all of this stuff. They run you through all of what you're going to know, the guilds and the regions and the skill lines and the classes and the character building, all of that stuff that you would expect with a typical Elder Scrolls style game. So nothing really new there. They run you through a little bit of how you're going to build your character in terms of, again, the allocations, the dice that are going to be like utilized. And then as your cooldown mechanic, then they get put from the main area into this little row and you take so many per turn, and they kind of run you through that as well. Really, you're going to have to watch one of the videos though if you actually want to know how the combat actually flows, because again, there's not as much on here as I would like potentially, but it gives you a very similar vibe that you can check out from a Too Many Bones system in a slightly different way. And that's sort of one of the other boons or criticisms, depending on what forum you go on, right, is that you have more of a Cloudspire-esque map, but you've got the Too Many Bones system, and some people are like, I just like the pure Too Many Bones 4x4 grid, and I just like doing that. And that's fine. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Take it for what it is, though, because this is also distinctly different. And so if you're just a Too Many Bones hardcore person, is this actually going to appeal to you? Okay, campaign that you're dealing with, keywords, questing sessions, unique decisions that are going to have branching points, 30 mainline multi-step quests, 85 encounters, 50 drawn encounters, and 15 side quests. So, I mean, there's plenty of stuff. I'm not worried about that. Here's the expansion. This is the other gameplay all-in, which is a second area that you're going to be getting, and it gives you more stuff and more classes. I mean, I guess that's fine. So take that for what you will. Here's the video that I mentioned. You got a couple here as well. This is the Q&A, and then the gameplay video, I think, is somewhere around here. Maybe not. Maybe it's not actually on the page yet. Here are the bundles that I mentioned, though. 230, 400, and 195. So, yeah. A whole nother goose or a whole nother gander, though, is this stretch pay thing. This is worth a topic of a whole nother video. I talked about this when it launched, the easy pay thing, when it launched on Chronicles of Drunagor. I'm still not a big fan of it. I still think it's preying on people who are badly managing funds in the first place. And it's a FOMO of a different type. It's a FOMO that, hey, maybe you can afford it, right? On a payment bundle deal. If you're having to do that, maybe this isn't the wisest game or the wisest thing that you'd be backing if you don't have the discretionary income. But again, trying not to judge, but I just feel like it's a slippery slope. I hate that phrase, but it's very true in these situations. I mean, the good thing about chip theory is that if you can't afford it now, you can always afford it later at retail. It's just going to cost you slightly more. So save up your money and just get it then. That'd be my preferred preference. Here are all the other premiums that it talks about: the art book, the drawbags, the playmat. The playmat's probably the only one I'd be seriously interested in. Premium health chips or whatever. They have tons of unlocks here that they're going through. This is easily probably going to approach their highest funding campaign ever, which is going to be maybe that and Unbreakable going head to head by the end. Stable project, that's fine, whatever. Yeah, it is what it is. So I don't know. I really think you need a rule book with a game like this. I really think it makes me a level of uncomfortable that I'm not willing to pledge yet at this point without a rule book. And will there be a rule book by the end? I don't know. I haven't really seen if on the Q&A that they answer that question, but that's going to be my biggest make it or break it. Like, I love the idea of this. I love the conceptualization of it. I need to watch some more gameplay. I need to get the rule book read, and that's what I'm most interested in. So I'll definitely do a video closer to the end. I mean, you'll probably see 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 videos of telling you whether or not you should back it at this point. But again, I think I usually wait a little bit longer just because I don't have enough information. There's not enough information at this point on the crowdfunding campaign, apart from just, you know, me not being as specific as I'd like to be for you to help you figure out whether or not this is right for you. Next up, D.E.I. So here is D.E.I. Divide at Impera. This is an expansion as well as a reprint from Ludus Magnus. This was my second pick of the week from last week that I said, oh, this is the one that you need to watch. And, you know, I don't always have strong opinions on these things. Ludus Magnus has been a little bit up and down. Their core gameplay has been relatively solid, but some of the delivery, especially with like Black Rose Wars and a couple of the other ones like Dungeonology, was kind of hit or miss too. But they sent me a copy of this, and I said, you know what, I'm going to try it out. I'll be frank with you. This is a game that needs a 2.0 version. And so there are errata full of forums on errata full of forums. There are forums full of errata on the rules section on the Board Game Geek page, and it needs it. That being said, there's a really, really interesting, solid, not overstaying its welcome style of area control game that's enclosed with this game. And I like some of the elements. I'm going to have a review hopefully out sometime next week of this base game. I'm not sure I'm going to talk about so much of the expansion stuff because they sent me the White Death expansion as well. But one of the biggest things is this 3D terrain. It's both a boon and a curse. It's hard to tell sometimes what areas are connected and how you're moving through the areas, and the rulebook doesn't define well points in between those areas in terms of, okay, you move from here to here to here, and they kind of give a little outline, but it's just not clear. And so I had to read a bunch of rules and forums and clarifications. I had to watch Board Game Co's I had to watch Board Game Co's gameplay video and actually seeing how the mechanisms work so I could actually fluidly teach it and play it myself. That being said, yeah, I kind of liked it. You know, and if you know anything about this channel, I am not a huge area control person by any means. I mean, it's one of the least numerous mechanisms in my whole board game collection of way too many games. I'm not going to talk about it there. So I'll put out some strong opinions on it, and you'll know how my feelings are. But I like the fact that you have these drones. You can buy these drones, even if it's not your faction drone. You're buying from a market. You're doing missions each round that you have to complete in order to get the victory points. It's not just a simple area control. The area control spin on it has that you have to move into an area where you can take over control. You can't just move in, which again is another interesting twist on things that I didn't think I would actually like. The modular tiles, I'll be frank with you, it's a lot of setup. It's a lot of putting together, but it gives it a different aesthetic without necessarily too much different overhead in terms of price. But it needs a second edition just to smooth some of those things out. It reminds me more so of that sense of Machina Arcana over there, which now is a third edition. Anyway, take that for what you will. But it's solid. It's solid. I really want to give you some more specifics, but I don't want to spoil my whole video as well. So this is the Candy Boost pack that you're getting for free to get the expansion, essentially mini expansion here. 50 euros for the expansion, which again is a little bit more expensive. The core box with the White Death expansion, which I have not had a chance to play yet. And I mean, it's just the question of, again, a huge all-in, again, going to be costing you high triple digits. You really have to love this game. I think I have most of this stuff, actually. I don't know if they sent me all of this stuff. They might have, actually. So I don't have opinions on it all yet, though. I do not see just the base game, though. If you're looking, okay, just the base game here, that's 100 euros. Oh, that's more expensive than I thought. So you're definitely paying, ignore my earlier comment about it being a little bit less expensive and a little bit price-wise. It's a premium product. It is. It is. And you know what? Frankly speaking, the 3D terrain does give it a little bit of that element, but I feel like it needs a little bit of design fluidity there to tell the areas, because sometimes it's a little bit ambiguous. But the real question is, how much of this other stuff do you need? And again, I don't really know because I haven't played through all of it yet. So take that for what you will. Essentially what you're doing is you're exploring, you're collecting resources in order to buy more cards, because you have this semi-deck building aspect of the area control where you have a set of like 7 or 8 cards that you begin with and you add cards to your deck. But if you want to buy them, you actually have to trash one of your other cards, which is a really unique mechanism. Depending on how many areas you control, you're unlocking asymmetric abilities that you can actually draft at the beginning of the game in each of the 3 different colors. And then you're actually having those cards that are going to be dependent on which one you can buy, how the marketplace is set up, and how many controls or areas you control in that sense that will match which faction or which color they are in the first place. Your leaders have special asymmetric abilities, and there's just a lot going on. At the same time, it's not overwhelming. It's actually relatively intuitive once you get playing. It's just the learning curve was a lot higher than I was expecting. So shipping is going to be expensive. This is a big box, folks. This is a big box, especially if you're going to get any of the other stuff. So hopefully I will have more of my review out easily by this time next week, and I can give you a little bit more detail on whether or not this game is right for you. But if that gives you the general gist, I definitely recommend you watch out Alex's video or check out the rulebook as well that's out there. But definitely a reprint and an expansion, something to give a look-see. HEXplore It. Here we go. HEXplore It, Fall of the Ancients. And apparently they're doing this with all of their core boxes now, as they're doing, going back to their previous expansions, each one of them, standalone expansions, if you will. And they are going back and they are saying, we're going to do a big, long campaign, cooperative narrative version of it. A spin on one of the other previous ones that they did. And so here we go. Let's do this one. The Forest of Adramon core box is required because you're going through that and you're giving a different experience with a lot of text, a lot of passages, a lot of in-depth narrative. And so that's really what you're getting here, right here. 8 sections, 500 pages, 1,400 chapter passages, 1,500 heroic moments. There's a lot going on with this HEXplore It situation. And I think the first one has actually been relatively well received. And it's just, do you need more HEXplore It? And they're offering basically everything, including all of the other core games, standalone expansions, as well as stuff that's previously in stock as well, not just having to reprint everything. But if you're going to go just for everything you need, the essential collection for this narrative, it's going to again cost you nearly $200 when you include shipping. Just the new expansion though is actually kind of cool. If you have already the other stuff, this is not that much to get in on. It's only $40, so that's a big difference. And if you want just the basics, again, it's going to cost you $100, which is not horrible. So not horrible, $100 before shipping. Stretch goals here, they're going to hit a bunch of them. They've got the other bundles, they've got the other stuff that is associated with it, and then they've got all their other campaigns here individually marked as well. They've got some early ship here of the previous stock. And my only problem with this campaign page is I just hate this page that's set up. GameFound tends to do this more lately, right? Like, then we get to the shipping, then we go which product is best for me, then we're getting finally, as you can see, 2/3 of the way down the page here, into what this actually game is, how you're doing the chapter patches, how you're doing the triggered events, how you're going through the forest, and what this game is actually going to do differently with the tales and the narratives and the campaign style. They run you through, again, finally down here, a little bit of what the actual turn-based situation is going to be and what the moments are going to look like. And I just wish this was at the top. I don't want to see all of the add-ons, all of the individual stuff before this. It makes me think you're trying to sell me more of the previous stuff rather than trying to sell me just the new one that's out here. And which is fine. I understand it from an indie standpoint. But as a consumer, if you're one of those people who's looking at this for the first time and you can't get down to figure out where this is until like 3/4 through the page, you're probably going to quit looking for it, to be frank with you, as cool as it looks. And again, I've heard good things about this stuff. I've heard, solid people who like it. It's just your mileage may vary on which one is right for you. And they even give you a little guide about saying, okay, here's the content, here's how things are split up here, and a little bit of everything there. But I mean, this is a RPG dungeon crawl-esque hex-based game that is cooperative. So take that for what you will. I think it's competitive though as well. So, I'm going to screw this up eventually. So either way, if you're interested, it's back and you can check it out. So there you go. Next up, we're doing Tir Na Nog, Grand Gamers Guild, my local publishing group. Again, they're almost 200% funded at this time, and this is more of a set collection drafting style game where you have your little wooden meeples and you're going to be placing them on vertices between these cards. And not really vertices though, you're placing them on essentially the sides of the cards, and then you're able to select one into your set collection where you're going to be having 3 rows of variable win scoring conditions with these GIAS cards, and you're going to be placing them across, and they're going to give you special rules, conditions, and scoring abilities depending on which row it is and how you place them. You're going to have a total of 15 cards. Usually you're going to have 5 cards per row, but depending on the rules and the things that are allowing you to break it, including the special abilities, you may have more or less depending on how you decide to manipulate that. There's a solo mode, and if you are getting it now, they give you a little free expansion, which is what they've done previously with a lot of their other Grand Gamer Guild games. And if you're local like me, I can even pick it up without shipping. So I'm tempted to do this. That's actually how I did Garinto, their abstract game that has a free expansion with it as well, that I have sitting right over there on top of Thunderstone Quest. And so they run you through the 4 different colors that you're going to have, the asymmetric abilities, the drafting here. You can see where you're going to be placing them in between. You make a grid of cards based on the number of people. The larger it is, with the more people, and then you draft them into your hand, then playing them off and down to your sets, as you can see right here. That's the basic gist of the game. They're going to have interactions, they're going to have abilities that you're going to take into account, and they're each going to be scored at the end of the game in order to figure out who wins. Rulebook is right there. I will say I was a little bit peeved by this, the rulebook. To actually get the rulebook here, I actually had to go over and check out and download it then. Minor thing, but I had to put my information in there to check out. So I kind of wish I didn't have to do that, but I wanted to check it out for you guys so I could give you some more information. It's very reminiscent to me of their previous game, the Doors of Cartagena. and Aldabas, the Doors of Cartagena, I believe. And again, I think the art is absolutely fantastic. This is probably some of the best art, I would say, even up there with Elder Scrolls this week. I think it's just a fantastic Celtic-themed game. And if you're looking for something light set collection, they've only got one pledge level. It's $36, which is a great price with the expansion included. And if you're local like me, to pay for $36 and not have to worry about shipping, that's kind of cool. But your mileage may vary. Are you looking for something set collection-ish with this theme? If you are, check it out. Next up, we have a little bit something different from Game Island Games, and this is The Last Kingdom, the board game. Already 100% funded. It's already reaching some stretch goals here. This is an area control style game where you're playing over 2 massively large rounds where you're going to be drafting cards into your hand and then playing them on a turn-by-turn basis, trying to outmaneuver in one of the 4 major regions. You're going to have allegiance, you're going to have affinity, and you're going to have an asymmetric ability with a leader that's going to hopefully lead your side to victory. What you're going to be doing here is you're going to be slowly drafting these cards, dealing 5 cards out to every person when you start the game, and then you're going to draft one pass until you end up with 4 cards plus your 2 leader cards. You're going to have a total of 6 cards at the beginning of that phase. Then, and this is the interesting tricky part, where you have these 4 areas on the map, as you can see there very vaguely. You're going to be going through, and the person with the lowest initiative, who's going first, is actually going to choose which area they want to have the conflict first. The second person is going to choose a second area where the next conflict is going to happen. But then the third player is actually the person who goes first in terms of playing their stuff. So you may get to choose where stuff is happening that's most advantageous to you, but you're not going to get to go first in order to enact your plan. And so that's going to be the dynamic of where do you actually want to go in the turn order, and that's going to really matter. And now this is a 2 to 5 player game that they actually recommend, I'd say probably even 3 to 5 as a minimum player count. They actually give you starter heroes to begin the game with if this is your first time playing as well. They run you through the 5 different phases or 5 different actions that you can actually take if you are going on your turn here. The primary actions you have here is perform a market action, 7 market actions that are going to be available to you. So that's a lot of stuff. Playing one of those cards that I previously mentioned, moving your leader around, passing, or preparing for an invasion where the conflict is going to be. Resolving the conflict, I mean, you're taking strength values, you're putting them down on the mat, and you're comparing. There's going to be ways that you can win the conflict and taking victory. The interesting thing here is when you win the conflict, you actually look at up to 5 of your people or armies or tokens in there, and you get victory points based on what they have on their actual cards. If you lose, you instead gain action points, which are additional turns that you can take if you need more to sort of rebalance things after said conflict. Discard, clean up, go for 2 final rounds. So this is really a smash grab, thank you, ma'am, sort of game where it's not going to be prolonged, and you have to be very efficient in your execution of said area control in the first place. Because again, like I said, there's 7 different actions just in the market values you're going to be taking, along with each of the cards that are going to have asymmetric powers. They give you a little bit of a gameplay example down here, so you actually get a really good sense of the flow, and I love how they do this in the game book here. Quick references for everything else you need to know. The pledge level is relatively straightforward as well. There's only one pledge level. It's $55. So that's a lot less than I would have expected, especially with an IP like this. Again, I hate sort of the show style art, so I feel a little bit torn about the box in that case, but take it for what you will. I kind of wish everything, it's just not my personal style. So if you're okay with that, great. I mean, it's a miniature game. It's area control. It's a little bit outside of Game Island Games as usual, but it seems like it's got a relatively good core concept, and I have no question about why it's funded, because I think you've got a little bit of a sleeper hit, sort of like the Godfather worker placement game. People who really like that, I think you're looking at something very similar vibe-wise that gives me. So shipping is going to be whatever. Take it for what you will. It's going to be $15. So $70. Do you think it's worth it with some miniatures and an area control style game with a little bit of difference with this theme as well? So that's Last Kingdom. Check it out. Next up, we got Crown of Ash. And you know what? I was actually supposed to do a video on this one, and then I was like, hey, that launched. And I was like, hey, where'd my copy go? And it's been stuck in customs for over the last week. And so I had to email the designer and be like, hey, man, I didn't actually forget about your game. It just hasn't actually arrived yet. And he's like, oh! And so hopefully I'll have a copy of this, and so I'll be able to do a video before the campaign is out. But in case you want to know a little bit of preview beforehand here, you're warring necromancers, raising undead armies in a worker placement, resource management, area control style game with some take that ish, not a ton. Direct conflict, but not a lot of take that, they say. 1 to 4 players, and you're going to be going here. So this is my sleeper hit of the week right now, number 1. And it's got these 6 different areas that you're going to be trying to gradually control, as well as a middle citadel that is going to be worth a lot of extra victory points. And so what you're going to be doing is you're going to be playing cards in order to battle. And so the conflict is card-based, not die-based. So it's a little bit better from the strategic luck side of things if you're one of those people. But you're also going to be using workers to go around and to gather those resources to summon your undead fighters in the first place. And you're going to be battling back and forth, trying to end up with the most victory points at the end of 4 rounds. Base pledge here, 45 pounds. Great. What are you getting extra here? Fighter modules and standees. Standees. Ooh, standees. Although, you know, if you give me wooden meeples there, I'm okay without standees even, right? 4 asymmetric necromancers that you're going to be starting with. And it's fast. I mean, 4 rounds, you're not doing a lot of stuff on these turns, but there's enough meaningful interaction, it sounds like. Just reading through the rulebook and looking at the gameplay here, they run you through just the basic turns of what you're going to be doing, the building the structures, because all of these worker placement spots will also have owners, and if you're, you know, owning them, you're going to get extra bonus resources. High conflict, low take that. Like I said, the rulebook is right there. There's enough video here that you can check it out as well, but I think you can get a relatively good sense compared to some of the other ones this week already with this rulebook from Crown of Ash. But again, I think this is going to be better at the slightly higher player counts. My probably preferred player count for something like this is going to be 3. 4 is a little crowded sometimes in my opinion, and then too many stuff getting in the way, but I love chaos too, so anywhere from 2 to 5. I easily see myself playing this one with my wife, so if it's got a little less overhead and a little less take that in the 2-player game, I'm fine with that. Deluxeifications here, and all in gets you some of the other stuff that I mentioned. So online, a few stretch goals, a few additional, that's cool. I like those screen printed meeples. They don't look weird, so I like that. But otherwise, a few deluxeifications really is the stretch goal stuff right now. Take it for what you will. Shipping is going to be what it is. This one is just a lighter, shorter, and I'm really intrigued to kind of see how I actually feel about it when I play. And this seems to be the trend of things, right? We have Last Kingdom, we have Crown of Ash, we have D.E.I, all launching in the same week, and we're not even all the way done with this video. So are we going to have 1 or 2 more? Probably. Crown of Ash. Check it out. Tell them Liege sent you. Now, relaunch, Thinning Veil. Interesting, because right now it has about half what it had when it canceled the first time. And this is, again, another Celtic. Like, Celtic and Vikings are all of a sudden, like I mentioned last week in their upcoming video that I was like, I don't see many Celtic, and then, you know, now I've got like 6 in front of me. So this is an RPG dungeon crawl style game, and it runs you through the script of what you're going to be doing in the Fey world. It's expensive. It's miniature based. How is the gameplay though? So what you have essentially going on here is you have both a campaign as well as a solo scenario, like one-shots that you can do depending on how you feel about this thing. And so you're going to be having your asymmetric heroes that are going to be going up against monsters in this veil, trying to hold them back, essentially, is what it sounds like. Deluxeifications go lower here with miniatures and plastic, and then you get down to the rulebook here. But what are you doing in the actual game itself? 100 hours of campaign material, they say, as well as 10 different and unique scenarios that if you want to do in the playstyle dungeon crawl, you can do that as well. Here's really where they're advertising what makes it unique. You have the soul system. You're fueling power and artifacts based on the enemies that you're defeating. Hero is upgrading like an RPG style, scaling system, as well as the enemies getting stronger, multiple beginnings, multiple endings, and then difficulty response to game conditions as you're going through, in-game progression like I leveled up system, and then a variable AI as well as a unique persistent world. So those are the issues. You really need to read the rulebook though, and even then I would say you're gonna have to watch the Learn to Play video, which is the only video on the page right now, if you actually want to see what the game flow actually looks like, because the rulebook is fine in terms of saying, okay, this is what this does, this is what this does, this is how you do the things here with all these actions, but you're really going to need to actually watch the video to get a better sense of, okay, how is the flow, because the rulebook doesn't quite give you that when you're going through it. So going back here though, again, there's only really the playthrough here, and then the Learn to Play as we get down below. Daily unlocks. I remember this, the Twilight King mountable miniature. That thing looked freaking sweet. But there's a lot of other stuff in terms of add-ons, in terms of deluxeifications and plastic. So that's sort of the issue, right? Like, this is getting a lot of money, but they also clearly needs a lot of money to make all these molds in the first place. So I have no clue if this one's going to fund or not. I could see it going either way at this point, so I wouldn't be surprised. I just don't know. It still seems a little bit generic to me, and I need a little bit deeper explanation on the page about why I should be getting it in terms of the actual mechanics. Like, I like the soul system, but unless I go read 36 pages of the rulebook here, I'm not quite getting the sense of, okay, what is really the big benefit? There's some bundled pricing as well that's going to be a little bit better, but it still feels like I need a little bit more to show me why this is significantly different than a lot of the other dungeon crawlers that I've looked at from that aspect of things. So we'll see. It's not out of the possibility of it funding this time, but we're going to see where it goes and how it ends up. I got to talk about this one just because it's a little bit crazy. It's a little bit weird. It's called My Precious, clearly with some outside influence there by a popular series of books and videos, movies you may be familiar with. Essentially, this is not what you would think about regularly a card game, but it's basically a dexterity game where you hold the card in your hand and other people have to try and steal it out of your hand. That's the game, folks. You have a number of health points. If you hold the card for a total of 2 rounds, you win. If you steal it from other people, or if you're the last one standing with any health points, you also can win. You're going to slowly lose life points as people do damage to you, or you have the ring and it does a damage to you itself. So take that for what you will. If you surrender it, you get some of that health back. You can heal yourself. You're gonna have a little bit of tokens, as well as a little bit of asymmetry in terms of powers. There's a whole bunch of new characters and game modes where it even gets reversed around. So the hunter becomes the hunted, the huntees become the hunted, and so you're gonna get a little bit of sense of there. But it's a print and play also, so they actually recommend printing off like a bunch of copies of the card so it doesn't get completely destroyed on the first game. But they mentioned that it is a game of dexterity, not of force, so you can't just tackle the person, but essentially on your turn you can either do one of the surrender or grab a token options, or you can tell the person that you're going to try and steal it from them, and you have 10 seconds to steal it from them. That's the game, folks. That's why I'm covering it, because short, sweet, and, well, something completely different. Now, last up here, we have Dungeon Saga Origins. That came up classic fantasy adventure, and you're getting back into Dungeon Saga. And the interesting thing here is, you can see in the picture, they also have colored miniatures, and in the rulebook they also have similarly colored miniatures. So the question is, well, the question was going to be initially that, are they going to be colored? But no, they're all gray plastic down here, so don't be fooled by either of those pictures. So this is basically like a lighter version of one versus all GM versus players 1 to 5 style playing game. And so that's going to be really the question. I read through the rule books. I saw that the pledge levels, and there's a lot of deluxification in terms of you can get like terrain, which either the 4 expansions that's going along with it. But the gameplay is relatively basic, straightforward, and I didn't really see the nuance there that was sort of making me think, right? Like, it has a little bit of dice-based combat where you each roll die, and you have to eliminate dice that are below the protection value of your opponent, and then anything that's above the protection value of your opponent, then you match them together, and then if your number is greater than the number, you do a damage. That's about it. That's the whole dice combat system, and you have a little bit of way of modifying the number of dice, but you can't have more than a certain number of dice based on your protection. Will never be higher than a 5, because a 6 on the die always hits you. And so basically it's just like a move and take an action, move and hit, move and hit, move and do this. And then the DM, or the GM, I guess, actually in this case, gets to go after the players. So the players all go first, and it's just who can eliminate the other one first. And so the thing with the rulebook is, I don't see, the nuance. I don't see the why this is different. I don't see anything from that aspect of things. It's very bread and butter. I don't say that in a bad way. I mean, it's going to be, relatively higher ceiling, but I don't see the, wow, this is doing something unique or something really cool. That's going to make me want to get this over half a dozen of the other ones that I either have in my collection already, or that are going to entice me in the first place. And again, it's not insignificant. You're talking $110 here for all of this stuff. Now, again, the £100 discount, but the ultimate pledge here is going to cost you, another $60 or so to get all of the scenery and some accessories that they mention here. So, I mean, quests, but it's basically, one versus all. So the 3 expansions that they offer here, a little bit of just straight up grid-based combat. It's just move and attack, move and attack, move and attack. If you're within range, you can slightly modify your attack number to dice if you have more people surrounding your opponent than they have surrounding you. But that's pretty much it. I mean, nothing bad, but also nothing to make me go, I'm going to spend $200 on this right now. 2 videos on the page, so you can check it out if you want. It comes in 4 different languages, 5 different languages, and that's it. So take that for what you will. I know Mantic stuff isn't widely available at retail, so if you're really interested, go for it. But right now, just compare it to what else you have and what else you have on your radar. So check it out. That's it. That's the roundup. That's everything. Tune in tomorrow. Tune in. Click subscribe so you get notified when my best of April comes out tomorrow, because I thought March was going to be an outstanding month. April is actually looking, now again, sort of like last week, top to bottom. April is by far and away the best month so far. March and February and January all had really, really good tops, really good highs, really good top level projects. I'm going to get myself in trouble wording there. Phrasing! Are we still doing that? No, but April, I think I've got probably like 10 or 12 games I'm talking about tomorrow. It's going to be absolutely fantastic, and stuff that actually really, really is intriguing for me. Stuff all over the place. Co-ops, miniatures, tech trees, worker placements, a little bit of everything that I'm just really interested in seeing what the funding does. Because like I said in tomorrow's video, it's always interesting what funds at what level, right? Some stuff you think, oh gosh, this is guaranteed going to be $500,000, 750,000, it gets like 100. Or this is looking like it's going to be like 100, and all of a sudden it's got like 750, just the opposite way. So I have no idea, and that's why it's so much fun, right? Flip a coin and see what happens. So that's all I got. Stay classy, spinning this baby around before it ends, hopefully. Don't skip leg day, and have a great, fantastic freaking weekend. Spring break, and my kids are home all week, and I'm working. It's going to be a long freaking week. Thanks for watching. Peace out.